Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I really wanted to make a video on how to start lino printing for under £10. I've wanted to make this video for such a long time, but it took me a while to research into all of the products and find where stocked them for the cheapest price. I thought it would be really useful to make a video like this just to show that it doesn't cost a lot of money to start lino printing and you don't need to have loads of fancy tools and you can still create really amazing beautiful prints for a budget. So after so much research I managed to find a lot of the products for the cheapest price from Hand Printed UK. I use them quite a lot when I'm buying printing supplies. They're really reliable, the supplies are always amazing quality and they are really affordable as well. I did also get one of the supplies, which was a little sketchbook from Amazon. It only cost me £1 and it's a really good quality paper. I will try and leave it linked below. I have cut it up and taken all of the paper out of it to use it for printing, so I don't have it to show you at the moment. But equally, you don't need to buy a sketchbook or anything, you can just use any A4 paper, or if you already have any notebooks you can always take the paper out of those and use that as well. So the first supply that I got from Hand Printed UK was this little piece of lino. It's a hard cut lino and it is Hessian backed. This is one of my favourite linos to use. I absolutely love it for lino printing, and this little piece was only £1.50, which I think is really reasonable. I know that A4 pieces can get quite expensive, but this little piece is the perfect size for one of the prints that I do. I tend to do quite small lino prints and I think it's best to start small anyway. When you're just starting out it can be a little bit easier to work with. So the next thing that I picked up was this little SD lino cutter and handle set, and it comes with 5 different cutters. So it comes with 2 V gouges and a slightly wider V gouge, a U gouge and then a curved tool. So that's kind of all of the tools that you would need for lino printing, and it's really good because you can get lots of different cuts with them. And also this isn't just like a one-time thing, like you can use this over and over again for every single lino cut that you do, and I just thought that this was really good value as well. So this was £4.75 and I started out using this lino tool. They're really good. They're not super sharp, but they are sharp enough to carve the lino. They are slightly easier to carve a stamp rubber with or a softer surface, but they do work fine on the lino that I'm going to use as well, and I really would recommend these for beginners because it's how I started out lino carving as well. And then the ink that I'm going to use is this little Versacraft ink pad. Again, I use these all of the time. They're one of my favourite inks. They're super good, super easy to clean. They also can be used on wood and fabric as well. And they're really good because you can just stamp them directly onto the lino and you don't need to buy a roller or a palette. So when you're just starting out, they're a really good option because it saves you from buying a roller to roll out the ink and a palette to roll out the ink on. These are also really cheap. This one was £1.95. They have such a good range of colours as well, so you can pick and choose depending on what colour you want for your lino print. So everything that I bought from Hand Printed UK came to £8.50, and then I spent £1 on the notebook from Amazon, so that's £9.50 for all of the supplies that I'm going to use in this video. But you don't have to use the paper, as I've said. If you have any printer paper you can use that, or any other notebook would be fine. So those are all of the supplies that I managed to get for under £10. The only thing that I am going to use, which I didn't actually buy for this video, is I use a pen and a pencil, but you don't need a pen and a pencil, you can use one or the other, and it doesn't matter what type of pen or pencil. You could use a felt tip pen or a biro, just anything that you have laying around at home will be perfect for drawing onto the lino. I just didn't include them in the budget for this video because I didn't specifically buy them, I just had them at home already. So now I'm going to get on with carving the lino, and I will talk through the tools that I'm using and give some tips and tricks for using them throughout the rest of this video, so I really hope that you enjoy. I started by drawing straight onto the lino. You can always sketch onto a piece of paper first and trace the sketch onto the piece of lino. I also went over my sketch in pen because it makes the design easy to see, especially on camera, but this is completely optional. I find it can make it easier to see what you're going to carve. I always like to fill in the areas that I'm not going to carve away. I just think it makes it easier for me to see this way. I started carving the outline of my design with the smallest V-gouge attachment. I like to outline my design first with a small tool because I find that it helps to get clean, precise lines. Hard cut lino can be quite difficult to carve, especially if it's cold. It's always good to start with the lino at room temperature, but if it's still difficult to carve, I like to use a hot water bottle and place it on the lino for a minute or two until the lino is nice and warm, and then start carving. I found that this helps make the lino a lot easier to carve. Once I've outlined a section of my design, I use a larger U-gouge tool to remove the larger sections of the background. Sometimes I prefer to outline all of my design before removing the larger sections or using a larger tool, and other times I work section by section. It doesn't really matter, it's just personal preference. I do find that with this carving tool it can be more time efficient to outline the whole design and then use the different attachments in order. Then you're not constantly changing the end of the carving tool. Once I finish carving, it's time to print, and because I'm using an ink pad, I don't need to roll out any of the ink. The ink can be stamped straight onto the lino. I like to go over each section a couple of times to make sure that there is a nice thick coat of ink. Once the whole of my design is covered, I place my paper over the top of the lino and I apply pressure with my hands, smoothing the paper over the lino and then applying more pressure with my fingers. If you have a teaspoon or a wooden spoon to hand, you can also use this to apply extra pressure. It can just help to get a more even print. If you're unsure if you've applied enough pressure, you can always peel away a little bit of the paper and have a look at how the ink is looking. If the ink is not as dark as you would wish, then you can place the paper back down and apply more pressure. And then you can peel away the paper and you have the finished print.